My name is Victoria. I'm 29, and for 2 years I've been secretly running a thriving online business while my family thinks I'm still struggling with freelance graphic design gigs. My relationship with my parents has always been complicated, especially when it comes to the constant comparisons with my younger sister Emma. So when my mother spent Christmas dinner gushing about Emma's elaborate engagement and upcoming wedding, asking when I'd finally settle down and get serious about life, I simply smiled and said, I am serious. I just didn't think you'd understand a seven-figure business. The silence that followed was deafening. Growing up as Victoria Chun in a traditional Chinese-American household in San Francisco meant living under the constant shadow of expectations I could never quite meet. My parents, David and Linda, had immigrated from Taiwan in their 20s with nothing but determination and a fierce belief in education and traditional success. My father worked his way up from a restaurant dishwasher to owning 3 successful dim sum restaurants across the Bay Area. My mother became a respected pediatric nurse at UCSF Medical Center. They had built the American dream through sacrifice and hard work, and they expected their daughters to follow an equally traditional path to success. Emma, my younger sister by 3 years, seemed born to fulfill their dreams. She excelled in school effortlessly, played violin at a near-professional level, and charmed everyone she met with her perfect combination of intelligence and grace. Her bedroom wall was covered with academic achievement certificates and competition ribbons. She graduated valedictorian from high school, received a full scholarship to Stanford for pre-med, and was now in her residency at one of the most prestigious hospitals in California. Meanwhile, I discovered my passion for art and design in middle school. While Emma practiced violin for hours each evening, I spent my time sketching, learning digital art programs, and creating graphics for school projects. My parents viewed this interest as a pleasant hobby, something nice for a well-rounded person, but certainly not a career path for someone who wanted to succeed in America. Art is for people who don't need to make money, my mother would say whenever I showed her my latest creation. You need a stable career like your sister. Medicine, law, engineering, something respectable. When I announced my intention to major in graphic design at the Academy of Art University instead of pursuing business or pre-med like Emma, the disappointment in my parents' eyes was unmistakable. The conversations around our dinner table became exercises in subtle but persistent pressure to reconsider my choices. Emma scored in the 98th percentile on her MCAT practice test, my father would announce during meals. She's going to make an excellent doctor. Very stable career, good money, helping people. When I tried to share excitement about a design contest I had won or a freelance project I had completed, the responses were polite but lukewarm. That's nice, Victoria. But have you thought about what you'll do for real income when you graduate? College became my refuge from the constant comparisons. I threw myself into my studies, learning everything I could about design, digital marketing, and business. While my classmates focused solely on the creative aspects of our coursework, I was equally interested in the business side of design. I took additional courses in marketing, web development, and entrepreneurship, sensing that the future of creative work lay in understanding both the artistic and commercial aspects of the field. During my junior year, I started taking on more serious freelance projects to help pay for school. What began as simple logo designs for local businesses gradually evolved into comprehensive branding packages, website designs, and digital marketing campaigns. I was good at it, really good, and more importantly, I was passionate about helping small businesses tell their stories through visual design. My parents' response to my growing freelance success was predictably tepid. Freelancing isn't a real job, my mother would say. It's too unstable. What happens when you get sick? Where are your benefits? Your retirement plan? Meanwhile, Emma's achievements continued to be celebrated with elaborate family dinners and phone calls to relatives in Taiwan. When she got accepted to medical school, my parents threw a party for 50 people. When I landed my first major corporate client during college, the news was acknowledged with a brief, "That's nice," before conversation turned to Emma's latest clinical rotation. The pattern continued after graduation. I moved into a small studio apartment in Oakland and continued building my freelance business while Emma completed medical school with honors and began her residency. Family gatherings became predictable affairs where Emma's medical career dominated conversations while my growing client base and design awards were treated as interesting footnotes. What my family didn't know was that my little freelance business was evolving into something much more significant. 2 years after graduation, I had identified a gap in the market that would change everything. Small and medium-sized businesses desperately needed comprehensive digital branding solutions, but most design agencies were either too expensive or too impersonal for their needs. I developed a systematic approach that combined high-quality design with strategic digital marketing guidance. Instead of just creating a logo, I provided complete brand identities, website designs, social media strategies, and ongoing consultation. My clients weren't just buying design services, they were investing in a comprehensive transformation of their business identity. The turning point came when I landed a contract with a small tech startup called Green Tech Solutions. They needed everything: company branding, website design, marketing materials, and ongoing digital strategy consultation. The project was ambitious, and they offered to pay me what I had been making in 6 months of freelance work for just 3 months of dedicated effort. The success of that project led to referrals to other startups and growing companies. Within a year, I had more work than I could handle alone. Instead of turning down clients, I made a decision that would transform my career trajectory. I hired my first employee, a talented designer named Marcus who had just graduated from the same program I had completed. What started as Victoria's Design Services gradually became Vivid Brand Studio, a full-service digital branding agency. I brought on additional designers, a social media specialist, and a business development coordinator. We moved from my tiny home office to a converted warehouse space in Oakland's Arts District. Within 18 months, we had 12 employees and were working with clients across California and beyond. The financial success surprised even me. What had begun as a way to pay rent had evolved into a business generating substantial revenue. By my second year of operation, Vivid Brand Studio was pulling in over $1 million annually. I was 27 years old, owned a growing company, and had achieved a level of financial independence I had never imagined possible. Throughout this period, I shared very little of my success with my family. When asked about work during our monthly family dinners, I would offer vague responses. "Business is good. Thanks for asking." When pressed for details, I would redirect conversations to ask about Emma's residency or my parents' restaurants. The decision to keep my success private wasn't made out of spite, but out of exhaustion. Years of having my achievements minimized or overshadowed had taught me that my parents simply couldn't see value in the path I had chosen. They were looking for traditional markers of success: medical degrees, stable employment, prestigious institutional affiliations. My entrepreneurial journey didn't fit their framework for understanding professional achievement. As Vivid Brand Studio continued to grow, so did the complexity of keeping my success secret. I had moved into a beautiful 2-bedroom condo in a trendy Oakland neighborhood, but told my parents I was still renting the same studio apartment. I had purchased a reliable car to replace my old Honda, but parked it several blocks away when visiting family to maintain the illusion of financial struggle. The emotional toll of this deception was significant. I wanted to share my excitement when we landed a major client or when industry publications featured our work. I wanted my parents to understand that I had built something meaningful and successful. But years of diminished expectations had created a barrier I couldn't bring myself to cross. Meanwhile, Emma's residency continued to be the centerpiece of family celebrations. Every milestone was announced with pride: her excellent evaluations, her research presentations, her selection for competitive fellowships. I genuinely celebrated her achievements. Emma was brilliant and deserved every accolade she received. But the constant emphasis on her traditional path of success, contrasted with the dismissal of my entrepreneurial journey, reinforced my decision to keep my business achievements private. The breaking point came during Christmas of my second year running Vivid Brand Studio. Emma had gotten engaged to Michael, a fellow resident she had met during her pediatric rotation. He was everything my parents could have hoped for in a son-in-law: intelligent, ambitious, from a good family, and committed to the same traditional path to success that Emma represented. As our family gathered for Christmas dinner at my parents' house in Sunset District, the conversation inevitably turned to wedding planning. Emma and Michael had chosen an elaborate venue in Napa Valley, planned a guest list of 200 people, and were discussing every detail with the kind of enthusiasm typically reserved for major life achievements. The flowers alone will cost more than most people spend on their entire wedding, my mother announced proudly to the assembled relatives. But Emma deserves the best. She's worked so hard to get where she is. My father nodded approvingly. Medical school, residency, now a beautiful wedding to a wonderful young man. Emma has really figured out how to build a successful life. As dinner progressed, the conversation remained focused on Emma's engagement and upcoming wedding. Details about the dress, the venue, the catering, the honeymoon plans in Europe. My Aunt Susan asked Emma about her plans for balancing marriage with her medical career, a question that led to another round of praise for Emma's maturity and excellent decision-making. It's so wonderful to see a young woman who has her life together, my mother's friend Carol commented. Medical career, engagement to a lovely young man, such a bright future ahead. I sat quietly through these conversations, occasionally offering congratulations and asking supportive questions about wedding plans. But I couldn't shake the familiar feeling of being an afterthought in my own family's narrative. As dessert was served, my mother turned her attention to me with the kind of pointed concern that I had come to dread. Victoria, you're 29 now. When are you going to start thinking seriously about your future? Your sister has her career established and is getting married. You're still doing freelance work and living alone. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to me. This was a conversation we had danced around for years, but my mother had never been quite so direct in front of extended family. I mean, she continued, the design work is fine as a hobby, but you need stability. You need to think about marriage, about building a real career. Look at Emma. She has everything figured out. Emma shifted uncomfortably in her seat, clearly embarrassed by the comparison. Michael looked like he wanted to disappear. My father studied his dessert plate intently. You could still go back to school, my mother pressed on. Business school, maybe. Or you could work for a real company with benefits and security. This freelance thing isn't sustainable long-term. The familiar sting of dismissal washed over me, but this time something was different. Instead of absorbing the criticism and changing the subject, I felt a surge of clarity. I was tired of pretending my achievements didn't matter. Tired of allowing my success to be invisible because it didn't fit their narrow definition of accomplishment. I set down my fork and looked directly at my mother. I am serious, I said calmly. I just didn't think you'd understand a 7-figure business. The words landed like a thunderclap in the suddenly silent dining room. My mother's expression shifted from concerned lecturing to complete bewilderment. Emma's eyes widened in shock. My father looked up sharply from his plate. What exactly do you mean by that? My mother asked slowly, her voice carefully controlled. I took a breath, realizing that there was no going back from this moment. I mean that my little freelance design business generated $1.3 million in revenue last year. I employ 12 people. We work with clients across the country. I own my company outright, and I've been financially independent for over 2 years. The silence stretched on as everyone processed this information. My Aunt Susan's mouth fell slightly open. Carol stared at me as if I had suddenly grown a second head. Michael looked genuinely impressed. Emma appeared torn between surprise and something that might have been pride. That's impossible, my mother finally said. You live in that tiny apartment. You drive that old car. You said business was just okay. I never said business was just okay, I corrected gently. I said business was good. You assumed that meant I was barely getting by. I live in a beautiful condo in Temescal. I replaced my car 8 months ago. I just didn't park it here because I knew you'd ask questions I wasn't ready to answer. My father found his voice first. $1.3 million? Victoria, that's more than our 3 restaurants combined. The admission seemed to surprise him as much as anyone else. He had built a successful small business empire, but apparently hadn't realized that my hobby had surpassed his own achievements. How is that possible? Emma asked, genuine curiosity replacing her initial shock. I mean, how does graphic design generate that kind of revenue? For the first time in years, someone in my family was asking about my work with actual interest rather than polite dismissal. It's not just graphic design, I explained. I built a full-service digital branding agency. We help companies develop their entire visual identity, create comprehensive digital marketing strategies, design and build their websites, manage their social media presence. It's about helping businesses tell their stories effectively in the digital marketplace. But why didn't you tell us? My mother asked, confusion and hurt evident in her voice. Your own family? Why would you keep something like this secret? The question hung in the air, loaded with years of unspoken tension. I looked around the table at the faces of people I loved, but who had consistently made me feel like my chosen path was less valuable than my sister's traditional route to success. Because every time I tried to share my achievements with this family, they were dismissed or minimized. I said quietly. My first major client was just freelance work. My design awards were nice hobbies. When I hired my first employee, Mom said it was playing business. I stopped sharing because I got tired of having my accomplishments handed back to me as not good enough. My mother's face flushed. That's not fair, Victoria. We always supported both our daughters equally. Emma made a sound that was somewhere between a laugh and a sigh. Mom, that's not really true. Every family dinner for the past 5 years has been about my medical career. When Victoria tried to talk about her work, the conversation always shifted back to my residency or my achievements. Her unexpected support caught me off guard. We had never explicitly discussed the family dynamics, but apparently Emma had been more aware of them than I realized. That's because Emma's achievements were easier to understand, my father said slowly, as if working through the implications of his own words. Medical school, residency, these are paths we recognized. Building a business from nothing, especially in an industry we didn't understand, it seemed so uncertain. Uncertain? I asked. Dad, you built 3 restaurants from nothing. How is what I did any different from what you accomplished? He paused, clearly considering this parallel for the first time. I suppose it isn't, he admitted quietly. I was so focused on wanting security for you that I couldn't see you were actually creating more security than most people ever achieve. My mother wasn't ready to concede so easily. But why this secrecy? If you've been so successful, why let us worry about your future? Why allow us to think you were struggling? Because I wasn't struggling, I replied. You assumed I was struggling because my success didn't look like what you expected success to look like. I got tired of defending my choices and explaining my industry to people who had already decided it wasn't valuable. The room fell silent again as the weight of my words settled over the table. My Aunt Susan finally spoke up. Victoria, what you've accomplished sounds remarkable. I'm sorry if we made you feel like you couldn't share it with us. Her acknowledgement was unexpected and deeply appreciated. Thank you, I managed to say. Emma reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I'm proud of you, Vic. I always have been. I just didn't realize you felt like you couldn't talk about your work with us. Her support meant more to me than I could express. Despite the family dynamics that had positioned us as competitors for our parents' approval, Emma and I had always genuinely cared for each other. My father cleared his throat. Victoria, I owe you an apology. I've been so worried about your financial security that I never stopped to consider that you might have already achieved it in ways I didn't recognize. What you've built sounds impressive and important. His acknowledgement was healing in a way I hadn't anticipated. Thank you, Dad. It means a lot to hear you say that. My mother remained quiet for several long minutes, processing everything that had been revealed. Finally, she spoke, her voice smaller than usual. I don't understand why you couldn't trust us with this information. We're your family. Mom, I said gently. Every conversation about my career for the past 5 years has included comments about getting a real job, or finding stability, or following Emma's example. How was I supposed to trust you with news about my success when you had already decided my industry wasn't legitimate? She opened her mouth to protest, then closed it again. The truth of my observation was difficult to argue with. I've been thinking of you as the daughter who needed guidance and support, she said finally. I didn't realize you had already figured out how to be successful on your own terms. That's exactly the problem, I replied. You kept seeing me as someone who needed to be fixed or redirected instead of someone who was building something meaningful. Emma interrupted the tension. Can we see your office? I'd love to understand what you've built. Her genuine interest was refreshing. I'd love to show you. All of you, if you're interested. I would like that very much, my father said immediately. I want to understand what you've created. My mother nodded slowly. Yes, I think I need to see this for myself. The conversation gradually shifted to more details about Vivid Brand Studio. I found myself explaining our client base, our team structure, our growth trajectory. For the first time in years, my family was asking engaged questions about my work and listening attentively to my answers. As the evening wound down, Emma pulled me aside. I'm sorry it took so long for everyone to see what you were accomplishing. I knew your work was important, but I didn't realize the scale of what you had built. Thank you for speaking up earlier, I told her. It meant a lot to have your support. You're my sister, she said simply. I should have been supporting you all along. As I prepared to leave, my mother approached me with evident discomfort. Victoria, I need to apologize. I realize now that I've been dismissive of your achievements for years. I was so focused on wanting traditional security for you that I couldn't see you were creating something much more valuable. Her apology was awkward but sincere. I appreciate that, Mom. It's going to take time to rebuild trust, but I'm willing to try if you are. I am, she said quietly. I want to understand what you've built and why it matters to you. My father walked me to my car, the same car I had been hiding from them for months. This is yours, he asked, admiring the sleek hybrid I had purchased after landing a major contract. Yes. I've had it for about 8 months. He shook his head ruefully. I can't believe you felt like you had to hide your success from us. We should have been celebrating your achievements, not making you feel like you had to defend them. We're here now, I said. That's what matters. The drive home gave me time to process what had happened. Years of feeling misunderstood and undervalued had culminated in a single moment of truth that changed everything. The relief of finally being honest about my achievements was overwhelming. Over the following weeks, my family made genuine efforts to understand and appreciate what I had built. My father visited my office and was genuinely impressed by the scope of our operation. My mother asked thoughtful questions about our clients and seemed to finally grasp that I had created something substantial and sustainable. Emma began referring clients to me, colleagues who needed branding or digital marketing services. Her pride in my work was evident when she introduced me to her friends, no longer as my sister who does freelance design, but as my sister who owns a successful branding agency. The relationship with my parents required more work. Years of ingrained patterns couldn't be changed overnight. But for the first time, conversations about my career were based on curiosity rather than concern. They began to understand that entrepreneurship required different skills and created different kinds of security than traditional employment. 3 months after Christmas, I hosted my first family gathering at my condo. Watching my parents explore my home and office space, seeing their genuine appreciation for what I had created, felt like a vindication of every difficult decision I had made along the way. I'm proud of both my daughters, my mother announced during dinner, looking directly at me. Emma is building an important medical career, and Victoria has created a successful business that helps other businesses thrive. Both paths require intelligence, dedication, and courage. The acknowledgement I had wanted for years had finally arrived. Not because I had changed my path, but because my family had learned to value success in forms they hadn't initially recognized. Emma's wedding the following summer became a celebration of both our achievements. When relatives asked about my work, my parents spoke with genuine pride about Vivid Brand Studio. The contrast with previous family gatherings was remarkable. As I watched Emma and Michael exchange vows, I reflected on the journey that had brought our family to this point. The confrontation at Christmas had been painful but necessary. Sometimes relationships require difficult truths before they can become authentic. The lesson I learned wasn't just about standing up for myself, but about the importance of living authentically even when others don't immediately understand or appreciate your choices. Success comes in many forms, and the people who truly love you will eventually learn to recognize and celebrate your version of achievement. For anyone who has felt undervalued by family members who don't understand their unconventional path, know that your worth isn't determined by others' ability to comprehend your journey. Sometimes the most successful route is the one that others can't initially see or appreciate. Today, Vivid Brand Studio continues to grow. We've expanded to 15 employees and are opening a second location in Los Angeles. More importantly, I no longer feel the need to hide my achievements or apologize for my success. My family has learned to celebrate entrepreneurship alongside traditional career paths. The business that started as a way to pay rent has become something much more significant. Proof that following your passion, even when others doubt its value, can lead to extraordinary outcomes. Sometimes the family members who question your choices are simply operating from fear rather than lack of love. The key is maintaining confidence in your vision while remaining open to eventually sharing your success with those who matter most, once they're ready to see and appreciate what you've built. The success of that Christmas confrontation had ripple effects I never anticipated. Word spread through our extended family network about my business, and suddenly I found myself fielding calls from cousins and family friends who needed branding services. What had been a carefully guarded secret became a source of pride that my parents actively promoted. "You should call my daughter Victoria," became my mother's standard response whenever someone mentioned needing help with their business marketing. She owns a very successful design company. The transformation in her language was remarkable. Gone were the dismissive references to playing with computers or freelance work. She had learned the vocabulary of my industry and used it with growing confidence. 6 months after the Christmas revelation, I received an unexpected call from my father. "Victoria, I have a proposition for you. Would you be interested in redesigning the branding for all 3 restaurants? We're ready for a complete refresh, and I want to hire the best." The offer was both professionally exciting and personally meaningful. My father was essentially asking me to help rebrand the business empire he had spent decades building. It represented a level of trust and respect that went far beyond our Christmas conversation. "I'd be honored," I told him. "But I want to approach this as a professional engagement. We'll need to go through the same process I use with all my clients, including market research, competitive analysis, and strategic planning." "I wouldn't expect anything less," he replied. "I want to see how you work with businesses like mine." The project became one of the most challenging and rewarding of my career. Working with my father as a client revealed aspects of his business acumen I had never fully appreciated. He had built something substantial through pure determination and smart decision-making, qualities I recognized in my own entrepreneurial journey. During our strategy sessions, we discovered parallels between our approaches to business that surprised us both. His focus on customer service and quality ingredients mirrored my emphasis on client relationships and exceptional design. His ability to adapt to changing market conditions reflected my own flexibility in evolving Vivid Brand Studio services. "You get this in a way I didn't expect," he admitted during one of our planning meetings. "I thought your generation only understood technology, but you understand business fundamentals." The restaurant rebranding project took 4 months and resulted in a comprehensive overhaul of everything from logos and menus to interior design and digital marketing strategies. When we unveiled the new brand identity at a family gathering, the pride in my father's eyes was unmistakable. "This is what success looks like in the 21st century," he announced to the assembled relatives. "Victoria took our traditional business and made it relevant for today's customers. She understands both heritage and innovation." The success of the restaurant project led to other opportunities. My mother began referring her nursing colleagues to me for personal branding services. Emma connected me with several doctors who were starting private practices. The family network that had once been a source of professional frustration became a valuable source of business development. As Vivid Brand Studio continued to expand, I faced decisions about scaling that I had never anticipated. We were approached by a larger marketing firm interested in acquiring our company. The offer was substantial enough to provide complete financial independence, but it would mean giving up the business I had built from nothing. I found myself calling my father for advice, a conversation that would have been unimaginable just a year earlier. What would you do if someone offered to buy your restaurants? I asked him. He was quiet for a long moment. Depends on whether they understood what I built and why it matters. Money isn't everything if you lose the thing that gives your work meaning. His perspective helped clarify my own thinking. I ultimately declined the acquisition offer and instead focused on sustainable growth that would preserve the company culture and values I had established. The decision to remain independent proved wise when we landed our biggest client to date, a national retail chain looking to completely reimagine their brand identity. The project was worth more than my entire first year of revenue and established Vivid Brand Studio as a serious player in the national market. Emma's wedding that summer became a celebration of both our achievements in ways I never could have imagined. During her maid of honor speech, she spoke about the importance of supporting family members even when their paths look different from your own. My sister Victoria taught me that success comes in many forms, she said, looking directly at me. She had the courage to build something extraordinary from scratch, while I was following a more traditional path. Both required dedication, but hers required additional vision and risk-taking that I deeply admire. The acknowledgement from my sister, delivered in front of 200 wedding guests, was profoundly moving. It represented not just personal support, but public recognition of entrepreneurship as equally valid to traditional professional achievement. During the reception, I found myself in conversation with Michael's father, a venture capitalist who had heard about my company through Emma. I've been watching your growth trajectory, he said. Have you considered seeking series of funding for expansion? The conversation led to an introduction to his investment firm and eventually to a funding round that allowed us to expand into new markets and services. What began as a family wedding became a networking opportunity that accelerated our business growth. As the company grew, so did my role as a mentor to other young entrepreneurs. I began speaking at business schools and startup incubators, sharing the story of building Vivid Brand Studio from a freelance operation to a multi-million-dollar agency. During one of these speaking engagements at UC Berkeley, a student asked about dealing with family members who don't understand or support entrepreneurial ambitions. The question brought me back to my own journey and the Christmas confrontation that had changed everything. The hardest part isn't building the business, I told the audience. It's maintaining confidence in your vision when the people closest to you can't see its value. But sometimes those same people become your biggest supporters once they understand what you're building. I shared the story of my family's transformation, emphasizing that the goal isn't to prove people wrong, but to create something so undeniably successful that they have to reconsider their assumptions about alternative paths to achievement. The speaking engagements led to opportunities to write about entrepreneurship and family dynamics for business publications. My article, When Family Doesn't Believe in Your Dreams, resonated with thousands of readers who shared similar experiences of feeling undervalued by relatives who couldn't understand their unconventional career choices. 2 years after the Christmas revelation, I found myself at another family gathering, this time celebrating my parents' 35th wedding anniversary. The contrast with previous family events was remarkable. Conversations naturally included updates about both Emma's medical career and my business achievements. My parents spoke with equal pride about their doctor daughter and their entrepreneur daughter. During the anniversary dinner, my father stood to make a toast. Linda and I came to this country with nothing but hope and determination. We wanted our daughters to have opportunities we never had. What we didn't realize was that opportunities come in many forms. He looked at Emma, then at me. Emma chose a path we understood immediately: education, training, service to others through medicine. Victoria chose a path we didn't understand at first: creativity, innovation, building something new. Both daughters have exceeded our wildest dreams, just in different ways. The toast continued, but I found myself reflecting on the journey that had brought us to this moment. The years of feeling misunderstood, the decision to keep my success secret, the confrontation that changed everything, and the gradual rebuilding of trust and understanding. As the evening wound down, my mother approached me with a wrapped gift. I found this while cleaning out old photos, she said. Inside was a framed picture of me at age 12, working intently on a computer in our family's den. You always knew what you wanted to do. I should have trusted your instincts instead of trying to redirect them. The gesture was small but significant, representing her acknowledgement that my path had been consistent and purposeful from an early age, even when she couldn't see its potential. That night, driving home to my condo in Oakland, I called Stephanie to update her on the anniversary celebration. "It sounds like your family has really come around," she observed. "They have," I agreed. "But more importantly, I've learned that I don't need their validation to be successful. Having their support makes everything better, but my worth isn't determined by their ability to understand my choices." The lesson had taken years to fully internalize, but it was perhaps the most valuable insight from my entire entrepreneurial journey. External validation, while nice, couldn't be the foundation for self-worth or decision-making. As Vivid Brand Studio entered its fourth year, we faced new challenges and opportunities. The team had grown to 22 people, and we were considering expanding internationally. The decisions were complex, requiring careful consideration of market conditions, financial resources, and strategic positioning. During one particularly challenging week of strategic planning, I found myself grateful for the family support system that had emerged from our Christmas confrontation. When I called my father to discuss the complexities of international expansion, he listened thoughtfully and offered perspectives based on his own experience scaling a business. "Growth is good, but only if you don't lose sight of what made you successful in the first place," he advised. "Your strength has always been personal relationships with clients. Make sure you can maintain that as you get bigger." His insight proved valuable as we structured our expansion strategy to preserve the boutique feel that differentiated us from larger agencies, even as we grew our capacity and geographic reach. Emma, now completing her residency and planning her own practice, began asking me for advice about the business aspects of medicine. "You understand entrepreneurship in ways medical school never taught," she said during one of our regular coffee meetings. "How do you build a sustainable business while maintaining quality?" The role reversal was both amusing and gratifying. For years, I had been the sister seeking advice. Now Emma was recognizing that my experience building and scaling a business provided valuable insights for her own professional journey. Our conversations evolved into an informal mentoring relationship where we shared perspectives from our respective industries. Her medical training provided insights into systematic thinking and evidence-based decision-making that improved my business practices. My entrepreneurial experience offered frameworks for innovation and growth that she applied to her medical career planning. The collaboration extended to business opportunities. Emma and several colleagues were considering opening a concierge medical practice, and they asked Vivid Brand Studio to handle their complete brand development. The project combined professional opportunity with personal satisfaction, allowing me to support my sister's entrepreneurial aspirations while growing my own business. "It's funny how this worked out," Emma commented during one of our brand strategy sessions. "For years, I thought we were on completely different paths. But now I'm essentially becoming an entrepreneur too, just in healthcare instead of design." Her observation highlighted how our different routes had led to similar destinations: independence, creative control, and the opportunity to build something meaningful according to our own vision. As the concierge practice project progressed, it became clear that Emma had inherited the same entrepreneurial instincts that had driven my success. She understood the importance of differentiation, client experience, and strategic positioning. The main difference was that her entrepreneurship was built on a foundation of medical expertise, while mine was rooted in creative and business skills. The practice launched successfully, with a brand identity that reflected both medical professionalism and innovative approach to patient care. Watching Emma navigate the challenges of starting a business gave me new appreciation for her intelligence and adaptability. "I finally understand what you went through building your company," she told me after a particularly stressful week of managing startup logistics. "It's exciting and terrifying at the same time." Her newfound appreciation for entrepreneurial challenges strengthened our relationship in unexpected ways. We had always been close, but now we shared the unique bond of business owners who understood the daily realities of building something from nothing. 5 years after the Christmas confrontation that changed everything, I found myself preparing for another family gathering, this time to celebrate the 5th anniversary of Vivid Brand Studio. The company had grown beyond my wildest initial projections, with offices in Oakland, Los Angeles, and now Austin, serving clients across multiple industries. The anniversary celebration was held at our original Oakland office, with current and former employees, longtime clients, and family members in attendance. Seeing my parents mingling comfortably with my business partners and team members represented a complete transformation from the days when they didn't understand what I did for work. During my remarks to the assembled group, I shared the story of building the company while keeping its success secret from my family. The audience laughed at the absurdity of hiding a seven-figure business, but many of the entrepreneurs present nodded with recognition of similar family dynamics. Sometimes the people who love us most have the hardest time seeing our potential, I said. Not because they don't care, but because they're operating from their own frameworks for understanding success. Our job isn't to convince them we're right, but to build something so undeniably successful that they have to expand their definitions. After the formal program, my mother approached me with evident emotion. Listening to you speak tonight, seeing what you've built, meeting the people whose careers you've supported, I finally understand the full scope of what you've created. It's not just a business, it's a community. Her insight was particularly meaningful because it captured something I had struggled to articulate even to myself. Vivid Brand Studio had become more than a design agency. It was a platform for supporting other entrepreneurs and small businesses in telling their stories effectively. The evening concluded with announcements about our expansion plans and new service offerings. But for me, the most significant moment was seeing my father in conversation with Marcus, my first employee who is now a partner in the firm. "Your boss built something special here," I overheard my father saying. She understood from the beginning that business success comes from helping other people succeed. The conversation represented everything I had hoped for but never dared to expect. Genuine understanding and appreciation from my family for not just what I had achieved, but how I had achieved it. As guests departed and the office returned to quiet, I took a moment to walk through the space where it all began. The converted warehouse that had once seemed impossibly large for our small team now felt almost cramped with our current staff size. But the energy remained the same, creative, collaborative, focused on excellence. Emma found me there, having stayed behind to help with cleanup. "Are you proud of what you built?" she asked. The question was simple, but profound. "Yes," I said without hesitation. "Not just the financial success, but the way we've done it. The relationships we've built, the problems we've solved, the businesses we've helped grow." "Good," she replied. "You should be. And I'm glad our family finally learned to see what was obvious to everyone else." As we turned off the lights and locked up the office, I reflected on the journey that had brought me to this moment. The years of feeling undervalued, the decision to keep my success private, the confrontation that changed everything, and the gradual rebuilding of family relationships based on mutual respect rather than traditional expectations. The story wasn't just about building a successful business, but about the courage required to pursue your vision even when others can't initially see its value. Sometimes the most important validation comes not from proving doubters wrong, but from creating something so meaningful that they have to reconsider their assumptions about what success looks like. For anyone struggling with family members who don't understand their unconventional path, remember that their confusion often comes from love and concern rather than lack of support. But you don't have to wait for their understanding to pursue your dreams. Build something extraordinary, and eventually, they'll learn to see its value through your eyes. The key is maintaining confidence in your vision while remaining open to sharing your success with those who matter most, once they're ready to appreciate what you've accomplished. Sometimes the families we're born into need time to become the families we deserve, and that transformation is worth the patience and persistence required to make it happen. Today, Vivid Brand Studio continues to grow and evolve, but it remains grounded in the same principles that guided its founding: excellence, integrity, and genuine care for our clients' success. The business that started as a way to prove my worth has become something much more significant, a platform for helping others tell their stories and achieve their own versions of success. And every time a family member refers a client to us or speaks proudly about our achievements, I'm reminded that sometimes the most meaningful victories are the ones that bring people together rather than driving them apart. The expansion into international markets proved more challenging than I had anticipated. Our first overseas office in London required navigating completely different business cultures, legal requirements, and client expectations. What worked for American startups and small businesses didn't necessarily translate to British corporations with centuries-old traditions. The learning curve was steep, and there were moments during those first 6 months when I questioned whether we had expanded too quickly. Cash flow became tight as we invested heavily in establishing our European presence while maintaining operations in 3 American cities. For the first time since founding the company, I experienced the kind of financial stress that kept me awake at night. During one particularly difficult week when a major London client delayed payment and our Austin office was struggling to meet revenue targets, I found myself calling my father for advice. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was seeking guidance from the man who had once dismissed my business as playing with computers. "Every business faces moments like this," he said calmly after I explained our challenges. "The question isn't whether you'll have problems, but how you handle them when they come." What would you tell one of your clients in this situation? His perspective helped me step back and apply the same strategic thinking I used when advising other business owners. We restructured our London operations, brought in a local partner who understood the market better, and implemented more conservative growth strategies for our newer offices. The crisis ultimately strengthened the company by forcing us to develop better systems and processes. More importantly, it demonstrated that my father's business wisdom was transferable across industries and generations. His experience navigating restaurant industry challenges provided valuable insights for managing an international design agency. As we stabilized our overseas operations, I began receiving invitations to speak at international business conferences about scaling creative agencies globally. The speaking opportunities led to consulting work with other agencies looking to expand internationally, creating an additional revenue stream while positioning me as a thought leader in the industry. One of these speaking engagements took me to Singapore, where I met Sarah Chen, a venture capitalist who specialized in investing in women-led businesses in creative industries. Over dinner, she shared her observations about the unique challenges female entrepreneurs face when scaling rapidly. "You've done something remarkable," she told me. "Most creative agencies struggle to break through the 7-figure barrier. The ones that do often lose their creative edge in the process. You've managed to maintain both quality and growth." Her comments led to discussions about potentially bringing in strategic investors to fund our next phase of growth. The conversation was intriguing but also daunting. Taking on outside investors would mean giving up some control over the company I had built entirely on my own terms. When I returned to San Francisco and discussed the possibility with my family, their responses surprised me. My mother, who had once worried about the stability of my career, was now concerned about me giving up too much control of my empire, as she had begun calling it. "You built this without anyone's help," she said firmly. "Why do you need partners now?" Emma, drawing from her experience launching her medical practice, offered a different perspective. "Sometimes bringing in the right partners allows you to focus on what you do best while they handle areas where you're not as strong. The question is whether you can find partners who share your values." My father's advice was characteristically practical. Money is just a tool. If investors can help you build something bigger and better while preserving what makes your company special, it might be worth considering. But if they want to change the fundamentals of how you operate, the money isn't worth it. The discussions with Sarah's firm ultimately led to a strategic partnership that brought in both capital and expertise without requiring me to give up majority control. The new funding allowed us to accelerate our international expansion while bringing in experienced executives to handle operations, freeing me to focus on creative strategy and client relationships. The partnership also connected us with a network of other portfolio companies, leading to collaborative projects and cross-referrals that expanded our client base significantly. Within a year of the investment, our revenue had increased by 60%, and we were working with brands across 4 continents. As the company's profile grew, so did media attention. We were featured in Fast Company's list of most innovative design agencies, and I was interviewed by Forbes about building a global creative business. The articles brought in new clients and speaking opportunities, but also created unexpected challenges. Success at this level brought scrutiny that was both flattering and uncomfortable. Industry competitors began poaching our employees with higher salary offers. Clients expected increasingly complex projects with shorter timelines. The pressure to maintain our growth trajectory while preserving company culture became a constant balancing act. During this period, Emma proved to be an invaluable advisor despite working in a completely different industry. Her medical training had taught her systematic approaches to managing complexity and pressure that applied remarkably well to business challenges. In medicine, we're taught to focus on patient outcomes above everything else, she explained during one of our regular coffee meetings. What's the equivalent for your business? If you keep that as your North Star, the other decisions become clearer. Her insight helped me refocus on client success as our primary metric rather than getting caught up in vanity metrics like awards or media coverage. This shift in perspective influenced hiring decisions, project selection, and strategic planning in ways that ultimately strengthened the company's foundation. The success of our international expansion led to acquisition offers from several larger marketing conglomerates. The numbers being discussed were substantial enough to provide complete financial freedom for me and significant payouts for our team. But each offer came with requirements that would fundamentally change the company's culture and approach. The decision-making process was emotionally complex. Part of me was tempted by the financial security and validation that a major acquisition would provide. But a larger part recognized that selling would mean giving up the creative control and company culture that had made our success possible in the first place. I found myself having lengthy discussions with my parents about the decision. Their perspectives had evolved dramatically since our Christmas confrontation years earlier. Instead of pushing me toward the safe choice of selling, they encouraged me to consider what would make me happiest long-term. "You didn't build this company for money," my mother observed. "You built it because you love the work and believe in what you're doing. Don't give that up unless the opportunity truly enhances those things." Her insight reflected how much her understanding of entrepreneurship had deepened since learning about my business. She now grasped that for many entrepreneurs, the work itself is more important than the financial rewards. I ultimately decided against selling, instead focusing on building sustainable systems that would allow the company to continue growing while preserving its core values. The decision required turning down offers worth millions of dollars, but it felt true to the vision that had driven me from the beginning. The choice to remain independent proved wise when we landed a contract to rebrand a Fortune 500 company's entire global presence. The project was worth more than some of the acquisition offers we had declined, and it allowed us to demonstrate our capabilities on the largest possible stage. Working with a company of that scale required expanding our team and capabilities in ways that pushed everyone to grow professionally. The project lasted 18 months and resulted in a brand transformation that was featured in Harvard Business Review as a case study in successful corporate rebranding. The success of the Fortune 500 project established Vivid Brand Studio as a major player in the global branding industry. We began receiving invitations to pitch for projects that would have been unimaginable when I was working alone in my Oakland studio apartment. But perhaps the most meaningful recognition came from an unexpected source. The Small Business Administration selected me for their annual Entrepreneur of the Year award, recognizing not just the company's financial success, but our contribution to supporting other small businesses through our work. The award ceremony was held in Washington, D.C., and my entire family attended. Watching my parents beam with pride as I accepted the award on stage was profoundly moving. The journey from their disappointment about my career choice to their public celebration of my achievements represented a complete transformation in our relationship. During my acceptance speech, I shared the story of building the company while keeping its success secret from my family. The audience of entrepreneurs and business leaders responded with knowing laughter and enthusiastic applause. Many approached me afterward to share similar stories of family members who initially couldn't understand their unconventional career paths. "The hardest part of entrepreneurship isn't the business challenges," I told the audience. "It's maintaining confidence in your vision when the people closest to you can't see its value. But sometimes those same people become your biggest supporters once they understand what you're building." The speech was recorded and later posted online, where it was viewed by hundreds of thousands of people. The comments section filled with stories from entrepreneurs sharing their own experiences of family members who had eventually learned to appreciate their unconventional paths to success. Following the award ceremony, I was approached by a publisher interested in turning my story into a book about family dynamics and entrepreneurship. The project appealed to me as a way to help other entrepreneurs navigate similar challenges while building their businesses. Writing the book required revisiting painful memories of feeling undervalued and misunderstood by my family. But it also allowed me to process how much our relationships had evolved and what factors had contributed to that positive transformation. The book, titled Building Bridges: When Family Doesn't Understand Your Dreams, was published 2 years later and became a bestseller in the business and memoir categories. The positive response from readers who saw their own experiences reflected in my story was deeply gratifying. Book tours and media interviews created new speaking opportunities and consulting projects. I began working with family business consultants to help navigate situations where different generations had different ideas about success and career paths. One of the most rewarding aspects of this work was helping other entrepreneurs develop strategies for maintaining family relationships while pursuing unconventional careers. Many of the situations I encountered were remarkably similar to my own experience, involving talented individuals whose families couldn't initially recognize the value of their non-traditional choices. The book's success also led to academic opportunities. Several business schools invited me to teach courses on entrepreneurship and family dynamics. The teaching role allowed me to share practical insights while learning from students who were facing similar challenges in their own families. Emma, who had successfully grown her medical practice into a thriving concierge healthcare business, occasionally guest lectured in my classes about entrepreneurship in traditional professions. Our joint presentations about sibling relationships and different paths to success were particularly popular with students from immigrant families facing similar pressures. The key insight, Emma would tell students, is that there are many ways to be successful and families need time to expand their definitions. Your job isn't to convince them you're right, but to build something so meaningful that they have to recognize its value. As Vivid Brand Studio approached its 10th anniversary, I reflected on the extraordinary journey from secret seven-figure business to internationally recognized agency. The company now employed over 60 people across 5 offices, serving clients on every continent. But the growth metrics, while impressive, weren't the most meaningful measures of success. The real achievement was building something that aligned with my values while maintaining relationships with the people who mattered most. The family that had once questioned my choices had become my strongest supporters and most trusted advisors. The 10th anniversary celebration was held at our original Oakland office, now expanded to occupy the entire warehouse building. My parents, Emma and Michael, aunts, uncles, cousins, and family friends mingled with employees, clients, and industry colleagues in a gathering that would have been unimaginable during my days of keeping my success secret. During my remarks to the assembled group, I shared the story of the Christmas dinner confrontation that had changed everything. The audience laughed at the drama of it all, but many nodded with recognition of similar family dynamics in their own lives. 10 years ago, I was running a successful business while pretending to my family that I was barely getting by, I said. Not because I was ashamed of my success, but because I was tired of having my achievements minimized. That Christmas dinner taught me that sometimes you have to risk relationships to save them. The evening concluded with announcements about our next phase of growth, including plans for offices in Tokyo and Sao Paulo. But for me, the most significant moment was watching my father in animated conversation with our head of international operations, offering insights about scaling businesses across different cultures. As the last guest departed and we began cleaning up, Emma found me in my office, looking out at the city skyline where my entrepreneurial journey had begun. "Are you happy with how everything turned out?" she asked. The question was deceptively simple, but profound. I considered not just the business success, but the healed family relationships, the team we had built, the clients we had helped, and the other entrepreneurs we had inspired along the way. Yes, I said without hesitation. Not just because of what we built, but because of how we built it. With integrity, creativity, and genuine care for everyone involved. "Good," she replied. "And I'm glad our family finally learned to see what was obvious to everyone else from the beginning." As we turned off the lights and locked up the office, I reflected on the lessons learned throughout this journey. the courage required to pursue your vision even when others can't see its value, the importance of building something meaningful rather than just profitable, the healing power of honest communication, even when it's initially painful. Most importantly, I had learned that sometimes the people who love us most need time to understand our choices, and that patience combined with persistence can transform even the most strained relationships into sources of strength and support. For anyone struggling with family members who don't understand their unconventional path, remember that their confusion often comes from concern rather than lack of love. Build something extraordinary, maintain your integrity throughout the process, and remain open to sharing your success when they're ready to appreciate it. The story isn't just about entrepreneurial success, but about the possibility of creating authentic relationships based on mutual respect rather than conformity to others' expectations. Sometimes the most meaningful victories are the ones that bring people closer together rather than driving them apart. Today, as Vivid Brand Studio continues to evolve and grow, it remains grounded in the same principles that guided its founding: excellence, creativity, and genuine commitment to our clients' success. The business that began as a way to prove my worth has become something much more significant, a platform for helping others tell their stories and achieve their own definitions of success. And every time a family member proudly refers a client to us or celebrates our latest achievement, I'm reminded that the most valuable transformation wasn't building a successful business, but creating the space for authentic relationships to flourish alongside professional success.